So yesterday we quoted the Maamar from where there he explained the third level of hושבתי of בשלום nafshi. He doesn't use those oisius here, and the explanation of the third level actually comes later in the Maamar. What we're learning right now is, although in our already sends us to that Maamar, is see there at length. The learning now is the two Eifanim and the third Eifan of Sholem. First way is Milamata Lamaila. Second way is Milamaila Lamata. And he said the difference being the first one is iskafia, engaging the Bahamis and convincing, refining. The second is h'tשכ transformation that happens through gilui of the neshama, yichida. And then there's a third way, and that was the end of Moishe, which has the milas of both. There's a third way he also calls milamata l'mayla, but really it's the mayla of both milamayla l'mata and milamata l'mayla. Because the chsoron of the bir of milamayla l'mata is that Nefesh Habahamis says this battle, but there's no change in the actual Nefesh Habahamis and her mitzias, its mitzias, my mitzias. Now, even though it's h'tשכ, we're talking h'tשכ in this gilui from above. But the h'tשכ is because of the great love of the Nefesh Elikis. Remember, as we said, they said it's Tzaddik Gomer of Tanya. But the true Gam Oiva of Yashlim Itoi, that the Gemara says about on the Pasuk Rabbi Hoyimodi, that David Melech's enemies made peace with him and prayed for his victory. The Mispal of h'tשכ Shel David. That's when the bir is milamata l'mayla. Now, that's only iskafia. So it's less than h'tשכ, but it's still ownership. It's the Nefesh Habahamis' decision, the Nefesh Habahamis' love. Okay, so further explanation about this, we'll see later, this third Eifan. Here he describes it as milamata l'mayla. But that was the first Eifan. And there the problem was that Nefesh Habahamis remains a mitzias, and it's possible it can oppose at some point. You won the argument today, doesn't mean you win the argument tomorrow with yourself. Now we're saying Milamata L'mayla is permanent. So this explanation, it's a different Milamata L'mayla. And the explanation will come later. We said yesterday from the Maamar, it's a beautiful word, I'll repeat it. The Maamar of Mocha Chedesh, Tafshin Yud Aleph. So there when he speaks the third Eifan, he says like this, that the second Eifan of his h'tשכ, quote unquote, is analogous to two opposing ministers, the accuser and the defender, the prosecution and the defense. And then when the king comes and expresses his will in favor of the accused, so then even the prosecution argues in favor of him. But that's only because the king said so. So there's an h'tשכ here. There is an h'tשכ. The prosecution is now arguing in favor of the defendant, completely changing positions. But why? Because the king has so expressed his will. And in the presence of the king, to which he's totally and absolutely loyal, he has a complete turnabout. So it's h'tשכ. At the end of the day, it's because of the king. It's coming milamayla. It's really not the prosecution himself. So the third level he says there in that Maamar, which he means here as well, but he will get a different hasbara, a different oisius later He says in Siftes, he says there is what causes the true transformation. We speak of it, the third oifen, which is all similar mata l'mayla. It's when the person starts to feel uncomfortable in himself. Studies could not, in other words, not because the other arguments are more convincing. I have a position, but your position is just more convincing. It makes more sense. A life of Kedusha makes more sense than the life of me, for all the reasons. And it's fulfilling all the milas. But my position is still a position, but it's just inferior. And I surrender and have no more arguments, and I agree. Not only are you right, it's right. But my position is still a position. And I get embarrassed in my position, then really Sapra can happen. And that, he says in the Maimar, the Tafshin Yudalev, that comes also from the Melech, but not from the opening Melech, but from the Atzmius of the Melech. Which means, again, my mind is going to give whatever Isis is going to give to this, but since we're talking and they send us, the Rebbe sends us in our order to that Maimar, what does it mean, the Atzmius of the Melech? The Atzmius of the Melech at that level, that Etzem level, that's my essence also. It's also my essence. So when the Iskashus, in other words, to the Melech is so essential, then you're not swayed, you're not convinced, not even inspired. It's beyond inspiration. I could be any other way. It's embarrassing to be in any other way. It's uncomfortable to be any other way. He's uncomfortable. The chassid. So when, in the words of the Maimon, he's angry in his own position, so then a real change can happen. That's the third oifer. It's malamata l'mayla, because he's confronting himself in the deepest, most honest way. And it's malamayla lamata, because at the end of the day, it's because his neshama is rooted in chelik l'kamim al mamash. It's the neshama, never shalikis, that is revealing this. So that level is not a choice. There's the good way, and there's way it's not so good, but it's also a choice, it's an option. It's not an option, it's an embarrassment. It's uncomfortable. It's untenable. You can't stay there, can't be in such a place. What's the place? The place is his own sense of entitlement and resistance and his opinion. But he may have an opinion. He's embarrassed that he has an opinion. So then he's a keli for the melech, mamash, the atzmius of the melech, and that then becomes his opinion. The emes, the pnimius. Not out of respect, not out of allegiance, because of that of the absolute truth which is his own truth. Okay, let's see our Maimon. We're told that it will be in Siftes we're going to get the explanation of what was just said. Now in V'oid Oifen, which is the third way, which sounds very much like the first way, but it's not. We're clear? Yeah. We're missing a light over there. You hit it. You just see about the seatbelt. Hit them all twice. You're sitting in the dark a bit. No. Yeah. You got it. I hear it. Okay. Yankee's sitting here he's way ahead of us. He's coming from Fabreng. You were there? It's coming down from Fabreng with Naftali. Mamash now. Yagdal Trader. Beautiful. Maybe you close your eyes after the maamar and then drive back, just 15 minutes. Be careful. We said earlier from the Bittul Rebbe that when it says B'Shalom in the Pasuk, it means both ways simultaneously. Two Shalom. L'mayla l'mayla. L'mayla l'mata means it's the Eibish's truth, and l'mata l'mayla means that is now my truth. Two Shalom. And likewise, that's in the pasuk H'ushavti B'Shalom that Yaakov said after Holavidus Habezurim al Beis Avi. And likewise, at the pasuk called the B'Shalom, meaning Shalom l'mayla l'mata, V'Shalom l'mata l'maylo, from both above to below to above. Shabiru never shabahamis. That the biru of the self never part of B'Shalom l'avshi v'chein biru nayitzutz shebe'olam. And likewise, the whole Avodah, the whole Shlichus, which is to elevate and redeem the sparks in the world that each one comes into contact with. V'shavti b'shalom al Beis Avi, as Yaakov is saying, I'll return in peace al Beis Avi. After the whole Shlichus in Charan and the struggles of Panos and bringing up children, the whole Avodah. So this whole Eifan has to be tzarech lis b'shnei Eifanim in the two ways. B'shalom. Derech l'mayla l'mata, b'derech l'mata l'mayla. Shalideizeh through the fusion of the two. Yeshnam shnei yonim mailas the shalom. We have both mailas because the maila of the maila l'mata is not you, and the maila of the mata l'mayla it is you. And each one has its maila. Shalom is the shalom, the perfection of shalom. Shalom, gamalash and shlemos. Shalom also not only in the sense we speak now of peace, but in wholeness. Peace from what? From the whole avodah, the whole struggle, the milchama, the krovli. And now another type, shalom, completion, wholeness. What's true wholeness? Who? Kesha shalom shebekol echad. The Shnei Eifanim, there's peace between these two ways. The peace of these two Eifanim, these two ways of redemption, of peace, of victory. One way victory is from above to below, and the other is from below to above. So what is the true shleimus in the shalom? When it's both ways. When there's two kinds of way of shalom, that's shleimus. That's b'shalom. You follow? But the b'shalom, when there's the b'shalom, then it's b'shleimus. Even in the bitter which he's engaging in himself, which always leaves the self, always leaves the mitzias. I mean, classically, that kind of bitter, which is a bitter apiseichel, and that's an engagement and convincing and so on, an experience, an experiment. So even, he said before, the Bahamis is convinced, doesn't mean tomorrow I'm convinced. Tomorrow there's another test, another question, another problem. So I was a good boy today, no guarantee a good boy tomorrow. That's the chesorim with that. So he's saying that when, however, that avodah is together with the l'mayla mata, yesh me'en and yet yisabcha, the beard of l'mata l'mayla has an element of actual transformation, the giloy of the nefesh halikis, the avarabba, the complete surrender, shagam, and also the other way. The beard, which is l'mayla l'mata, which is on the one hand what? Yisabcha, and the fight is over. The problem is the fight is over because of the vastly superior firepower of the Nefesh Halikis. It's not really Nefesh Bahamis's. He's not there really, the Pnimius. So here we're saying no, that even in Avodah Derech L'mayla Mata Yeshma and Hamayla, here too there's the Mayla the other way. Shabiru Mitzad Yinyan Atachnu, the Bir is the Nefesh Bahamis's ownership. So that's the Mayla both. Again, the Bir is in Siftes. We shared this morning the Bir of Machachedesh Tarshin Yudal. all comes down to the same thing. It's an atzmistic thing. Here we're talking giloy one way or another, but from tzad ha'etzem, and both at the same time. It is you and it's not you. It's all you and it's all not you. We're just starting our journey here in this Maamar. The first step, obviously, in achieving anything remotely connected to what we're talking about is to understand it. We said before, the machshavin, you have to understand it. We're starting our journey. You have to understand this, at least to the theory. If you don't understand even the theory, then there's little or really no chance of it actually happening. Let's start with Chabad. So let's continue. Let's understand. When you learn the Maamar, like he says, it's like a student before the teacher. Then what's the point of davening? At least Shabbos, when you have a little bit of time, is live the Maamar, apply it. Now we have to understand it. Obviously, you have to understand it in a personal way. Das, not just bina. So this is what the pasuk is saying. Pod b'shalom, and all the diyukim mikravli. There is a battle. We asked earlier if it's a peaceful, if it's true shalom, because it's gila yechida, so there's no battle. No, but there is a battle because they're not speaking. It's adi gomor where the yechida is revealed and the neshama is revealed, but the Jew just thinks and knows about it. So he knows. And he's able, therefore, just in that alone to connect to it, to this truth. At any rate, so therefore, Shagam in the B'Shalom. So what is the pasuk saying? That evening of Pada redeemed in Pishu, but that Aklal generally, classically, that means Abdi ad Neveshalikis Magol Neveshabamis al Digiliyoid. Normally, that means Malamayla Lamata, the revelation. Neveshalikis is Giloy, it's great love. So the pasuk is saying mikrovli tiyabay hamayla de mikrovli. It has also the mile of the engagement of the battle within mikrov meloshin kirov, this engagement with the self. Habiru neveshabamis atzmo de malmata lamayla. It's both ways. Now that is also the other way. Shagam babiru shebederach krov milchama. Even as he battles, he away from the pada b'shalom. The battle means that there's always the other opinion. He just loses this round. Nonetheless, even there's even the pada b'shalom is the transformation. So again, tzorich even godel what the siftes as the Maamar explained it. The words are beautiful, but what does it mean? What does it mean that in the Gilui Milamayla, true Gilui Milamayla, there's still a battle? And if there's a Gilui Milamayla, there's no battle is over. What does it mean in the Birat Tachten? There's his hapcha. Mamshi Maamar, so the Maamar will explain. So the middle Rabbi said, the reason all this happens is this ultimate, the shleimus abiru, the mile of both, from above to below and below to above. Again, it's all me, it's all not me. So this is all because that's gila yechida we said earlier. Explain why that's conveyed, how that's conveyed in the word barabim, because that's the level where everybody, it's barabim. The level of Yechid that everybody has. It's one of the big units. Anyway, so Barabim Ha'yimodi. Huatam, that's key because Barabim it's the reason Al Pod B'Shalom Nafshim corruptly for this kind of Pidiyah. Going back to what he said before. Talidei is born in this being in a Yechidah. So you're thinking about what that he has in the Shama Yechida, which is a Chelek Alekam Imal Mamish. He's a part of the Melech, not just his loyal servant. So this I didn't learn further together. So this is made by him the bittul in brackets Hainu. What does this mean? This is the Yisraelis that starts the whole Avodah, meaning, even before he actually achieves the Avodah of the redemption of his neshama, and he sees at the beginning of Avodah, and there's the need, his Nefesh Halikis is in prison, the Nefesh Habamis is getting the upper hand. So it all begins with the word it all begins with a general recognition of his bonus, that he has an neshama yechida which is selfless at its core, and verily a part of Hashem, and there's no ego there, there's no self at all. So that machshava, he says, is poil, a general bittul. Let's read further. So we're starting off with this recognition, Pasha Raim Yid, in its truest and simplest and deepest truth. Then Abir Nefesh Habamis away from the pod B'Shem Nafshim Mikrovli, that sets in motion the whole avodah of this redemption in both ways. And he says in footnote 36, wait for Siftas for the answer. We're just getting the outline. We're getting the outline that how does it begin? It begins with the Nekuda Atzmis Aim Yid. I'm part of the king, as he says in the mind, not the opening Melachim, but the Atzmis of the king. And therefore that happens even not in the king's presence. It's only in the king's presence, the king said his opinion. So it's the big chassid, he's in this battle. But inside the Atzmis of the Melech, then he carries that with him. So he said before, that's the machshava, this has to start the whole avodah has to start with who are you? What am I? Me, chassid, whatever language, whatever words. That's my core identity. Okay, we'll see Be'ez Hashem further. We'll see the Maimon. Look at out of 35. So this is what it says in the pasuk. Yaakov said, so the Eibishter told him, you'll be like, your children will be like the earth of the world, and you'll spread. Which is what's paras, breaking boundaries in Gila Yechida. And as we'll say later in Sifyud. Therefore, what's the prerequisite to Faratzda?
Good morning. Sorry to interrupt.
Good morning. We're just wrapping up here. Earth, welcome. The Afar made al Tachlis Bittul. Earth is the absolute bittul. Everybody treads upon it, and it's source of all life because of its bittul. So therefore, that brings to a Faratzda. So he's saying here the machshava, and recognizing that my core level Yechid is one with the Eibishter, and it's selfless and egoless. That's the etzem who I am or I am not. So that is what brings to a Faratzda. Okay.